Peaky Blinders begins in Birmingham in 1919 following the First World War and tells the story of the Peaky Blinders gang consisting mostly of the Shelby family. Decorated veteran Thomas Shelby as the leader of the gang, which also includes his brothers Arthur, John and Finn, and their Aunt Polly. When Tommy comes across an assortment of guns that he thinks he can use to his advantage, Winston Churchill sends Inspector Campbell to retrieve them. To help with his mission, Campbell assigns Grace Burgess to go undercover working at the Garrison, a pub owned by the Peaky Blinders, to gain intel. Of course, as Grace gets closer to Tommy, the two begin to actually fall in love. This leads to Grace eventually going to Campbell to resign from her position and trade information on the guns for Tommy's safety, but this is slightly complicated when Campbell professes his own desire to marry Grace, and it's not just the guns that cause trouble for the Peaky Blinders. Tommy begins fixing horse races, putting him in opposition with Billy Kimber, leader of the Birmingham boys gang that runs the horse tracks elsewhere. In season 1, the Shelby's sister Ada marries and has a son with Freddie, Thorne, Tommy's best friend. The Shelby's father, Arthur Sr., returns to town after abandoning his family a decade prior and tricks Arthur Jr. into loaning him a large sum of money before running off once again, sending Arthur Jr. into a bout of depression. John announces his intentions to marry former prostitute Lizzie, but when Tommy hires her for himself to prove she wasn't actually retired from that line of work, John calls off the wedding. Tommy then arranges for John to marry Esme, daughter of the rival Lee family, to secure an alliance between the Shelbys and Lee in their fight against Billy Kimber. In the final confrontation between the Peaky Blinders and Billy Kimber, the Peaky Blinders win with Tommy putting a bullet in Billy Kimber's head. As Series 1 comes to a close, Grace professes her true love for Tommy, but he's unsure if he can trust her as he flips a coin to decide whether or not he should be with her. Grace is confronted by Campbell at gunpoint. In Series 2 of Peaky Blinders, it's revealed that Grace shot Campbell, but he survived. 2 years later, Grace has moved to America and gotten married. Freddie has died from pestilence, and Tommy has plans to expand the Peaky Blinders operations into London, putting him at odds with Italian gang leader Darby. Sabini. Tommy also begins working with the Irish Republican Army, or IRA, which wants to unite Ireland under one state, not under British control. In Tommy's attempts to expand operations in London and take down Darby, Sabini, the Peaky Blinders forcefully take control of Darby's club, the Eden, and form an alliance with Alfie Solomon, leader of a Jewish gang elsewhere. Arthur's PTSD from the war sends him spiraling into addiction, leading to erratic and sometimes violent behavior. Lizzie is hired by Tommy to serve as his secretary. Polly's long-lost son Michael, taken from her at the age of 5, returns home and joins the family business, and Tommy strikes up a relationship with horse trainer May, which is complicated when Grace returns to town with her husband and falls back into bed with Tommy and gets pregnant. To combat the Peaky Blinders expansion, Darby Sabini offers Alfie Solomons his own deal to align, causing the Jewish gangster to backstab the Shelby. This results in both Arthur and Michael being arrested. Campbell forces Polly to sleep with him in exchange for the release of Michael. Tommy returns to Alfie Solomon to try once again to form an alliance. Alfie has become dissatisfied with Darby's and agrees to once again unite with the Peaky Blinders. Alfie manages to get Arthur out of prison. As Tommy sets his sight on taking down Darby, he sends the Peaky Blinders to the Derby Day horse races, where they collect and burn the licenses of Darby's bookies and steal all of the bet money. Tommy is then kidnapped on the order of Campbell and taken into a field for execution. Fortunately, one of Tommy's kidnappers turns on the others, killing them and informing Tommy that Winston Churchill would soon be in touch. Meanwhile, Polly gets her revenge on Campbell by killing him. In Series 3, 2 years have passed and Tommy has continued a partnership with Winston Churchill to have the Peaky Blinders orchestrate illegal moves to advance Churchill's more benevolent plans as Tommy and Grace raise their infant son Charlie and prepare to get married. The gang tries to prevent Lizzie from bringing her shady new boyfriend Angel to the wedding, and so the Peaky Blinders burn down Angel's restaurant when Angel's father Vaunt vows to enact revenge on the Shelby family. A hot-headed John threatens Vaunt and beats up Angel in his own act of revenge. Vaunt orders his men to attack the Shelby family, resulting in the tragic death of Grace. The loss of his wife sends Tommy into a violent spiral, leading to the deaths of Angel and Vaunt. Tommy also finds himself in a business partnership with Archduke Romanov, who has fled to England after the Russian Revolution, and the shady father Hughes, who threatens Tommy and races infant son Charlie to keep Tommy in line. The Russians want the Peaky Blinders to steal guns from a train to aid in their rebellion and then blow up the train to cause an international incident. The Russians would then pay the Peaky Blinders in jewels, fearing the Russians will betray them. Tommy also plans on breaking into their vault to steal the jewels for themselves. To assist in the heist, Tommy brings in frenemy Alfie Solomon. Michael also reveals to Tommy that he had been molested by Father Hughes as a child and asks permission to kill him. Polly, not wanting her son to commit murder, warns Tommy to not let him go through with it. Unfortunately for Tommy, Alfie alerts Father Hughes of the Peaky Blinders' plan. Hughes kidnaps Charlie and demands Tommy go through with both the train heist and the jewel heist, delivering the jewels to Hughes as ransom. Michael tracks down Hughes and kills him, saving Charlie. John and Arthur blow up the train and Tommy leads a team to steal the jewels, and so in the end the Peaky Blinders' plan is pulled off successfully. Meanwhile, Arthur marries and has a child with a woman named Linda, and Arthur is made head of the Peaky Blinders' future office in America. As the series comes to a close, Tommy begins distributing the loot to his family, but then drops a massive bombshell on them all. Warrants have been made out for the arrest of the entire family. Tommy assures them all that he has made a deal with someone more powerful than their enemies that would ensure their release, but that obviously does little to comfort the Shelby family as the police arrest them and Tommy looks on. In Series 4 of Peaky Blinders, just as the Shelby family are about to be hanged for their crimes, Tommy secures their release by agreeing to destroy evidence of his working relationship with Winston Churchill after the family are rewarded their freedom. The Shelby become estranged and go their separate ways. 1 year later, each member of the Shelby family receives a letter from Luca Changretta marking them for death as retribution for the murders of his father and brother Vaunt and Angel. Proving the seriousness of the threat, John and Michael are gunned down at John's home. Michael barely survives his injuries while John tragically succumbs to his wounds. The Peaky Blinders agreed to set aside their differences and come together once again to enact their revenge on Luca and his Sicilian mafia. They hire professional killer Abrama Gold to help in their quest for revenge, and Gold agrees to help in exchange for his boxer son Bonnie being inducted into the Peaky Blinders gang. Tommy accepts the arrangement and sets up a boxing match for Bonnie to fight Alfie Solomon's nephew Goliath. Luca then goes to Alfie to strike a deal in killing Thomas Shelby with the hit plane to occur at the upcoming boxing match. During the fight, Tommy avoids murder, but Luca's men seemingly kill Arthur. Defeated, Tommy calls for a meeting with Luca in his distillery and agrees to sign over his assets to the Sicilian mafia, but of course this was all a trap set up by Tom, and in Alive and Well Arthur shows up and kills Luca. Tommy then pays a visit to Alfie, confronting him for yet another betrayal. Alfie reveals he has cancer and only took Luca's deal in the hopes that Tommy would seek revenge and put him out of his misery. Tommy obliges, shooting Alfie and leaving as the Peaky Blinders resolve their business problems. The Shelby family also make progress in their personal lives. Polly and Aimee Gold develop a romantic relationship, as do Tommy and Lizzie, who have a daughter Ruby. Together, as the series comes to a close, Tommy decides to change up his lifestyle and seek power in a much safer way, winning an election to become an official member of Parliament. In Series 5, several years have passed and Thomas Shelby is trying to focus on being a member of Parliament and his legitimate businesses over the business dealings of the Peaky Blinders. He begins meeting with fellow MP Oswald Mosley, but Iddo warns Tommy that Mosley is moving toward fascism. Tommy decides to join Mosley's fascist movement with the intent of taking them down from the inside. Meanwhile, Michael has been placed in charge of the Shelby's business operations in America and gotten married to a woman named Gina. When Wall Street crashes, losing most of the Shelby fortune, Michael and Gina head back home to Birmingham. Rumors begin to circulate that Michael is trying to overthrow Tommy to take over his head of the Shelby family, but Michael proclaims his innocence and that a rival gang known as the Billy Boys were the real danger. Anger, and Michael is right to fear the Billy Boys as they shoot Abraham Gold and kill his son Bonnie to send a message to Tommy that they were taking over the area with their finances in a very precarious place. The Shelby and the Peaky Blinders are in no position to go to war with the Billy Boys and instead call a truce with their leader Jimmy McCavern. This angers the vengeful Gold, but Tommy offers the grieving father Polly's hand in marriage to appease him, and so Gold proposes to Polly, who accepts to generate more income for the Shelby family. Tommy strikes up a deal with a Chinese triad businessman named Chong to help him smuggle opium at a Shelby family meeting. Michael reveals himself to be the schemer that Tommy suspected him of being and proposes taking full control of the family business, pushing Tommy into a more background role. Tommy rejects this proposal and banishes Michael for his attempted coup with her son out of the family business. Polly decides to resign as she departs. She reveals a prophecy she has seen to Tommy in which the Shelby family would go to war and one of Tommy or Michael would die. Meanwhile, Arthur and Linda's marriage begins to fracture, leading them to divorce. Ada begins an affair with an Army intelligence officer, Ben Younger, who tries to aid Tommy in taking down Mosley. Unfortunately, Ben is then murdered for his involvement with Tommy before ever learning that Ada is pregnant with his child. When Mosley's fascist agenda begins receiving support from the government, Tommy realizes the political leader needs to be assassinated, so he recruits his old army buddy Barney to do the job. Tommy then pays a visit to a very much alive Alfie Solomons, who survived being shot in the face, and asks his men to stage a riot that would serve as a cover for Mosley's assassination. The assassination attempt at Mosley's fascist rally turns into a complete disaster. New Peaky Blinders member and close friend to Finn Shelby, Billy Grade, tips off an unknown person to Tommy's plans. This leads to Barney being killed by an unknown assassin before he can kill Mosley, and when Abraham Gold tries to kill Jimmy McCavern to avenge Bonnie, he is tragically stabbed to death. Oswald Mosley leaves his successful rally alive and well, while Tommy is left defeated at his lowest point and losing against his toughest enemy. Yet Tommy falls into a deep depression. In Series 6 of Peaky Blinders, Tommy learns that his former allies in the Irish Republican Army had been the ones to thwart Mosley's assassination, and not only had they killed Barney and Abraham Gold but also tragically Polly. As the Shelby family mourned their losses, Michael vows vengeance on Tommy for inadvertently leading his mother to her death. 4 years later, Tommy has sobered up and lives in seclusion on an island off the coast of France. All the while plotting his revenge, Tommy sets up a meeting with Michael, who has been living in America with Gina and working with her uncle Jack Nelson. Tommy wants to use the island as a harbor to smuggle opium to Jack's gang in America. As Michael agrees to take the proposal to Jack, Tommy betrays his cousin and rats him out to the police, leading to Michael's arrest. When Lizzie calls Tommy and informs him that their daughter Ruby is sick, he finally returns home to England to reunite with his family, where Tommy promises Lizzie that he just needs to complete this one final plan before they can all live happily in peace. Jack Nelson then arrives in England with Gina by his side to finalize the opium deal and forge an alliance with Oswald Mosley and the fascist party. In response, Tommy strikes up one final alliance of his own with Alfie Solomon, whose uncle was killed in America by Jack's gang. Tommy offers to give the Solomons gang in America enough opium to rebuild their operation and overthrow Jack's power. As Ruby's condition worsens, she is diagnosed with tuberculosis. Tommy asked John's gypsy widow Esme to heal her, but to no avail, and Ruby tragically dies when Tommy is diagnosed with the same incurable disease. He goes about getting his affairs in order before he succumbs to his inevitable death. Esme then reveals to Tommy that she has discovered that he has a secret illegitimate adult son named Duke. Tommy embraces Duke into the Shelby family and hopes that Duke will take over the family's criminal enterprise in his absence, while hoping that his other son Charlie can lead a peaceful life away from crime. But we can see Peaky Blinders. The Immortal Man trailer. Charlie is leading Peaky Blinders while World War II, and played by incredible actor Barry Keoghan, and facing against one of my favorite actor Cillian Murphy. I can't wait for this movie. Well, let's come back to video. Meanwhile, Tommy arranges for a meeting with himself, Jack, Oswald Mosley and Mosley's fiancée Diana Midford, where the group discussed the merits of Hitler. Much to Tommy's hidden disgust, Tommy secretly relays the details of the meeting to Winston Churchill in the hopes of helping him eradicate the fascist from Parliament. Arthur has fallen hard into an opium addiction following Paul's death, but Tommy helps him sober up and pays Linda to look after him on his road to redemption. Tommy is then coerced into sleeping with Diana to secure financing for charitable housing, but when the affair is revealed to Lizzie, she leaves Tommy and takes their son Charlie with her, as Tommy continues to plot his enemy's demise and set up the Peaky Blinders for success. In his absence, everything begins coming to a head. Michael is busted out of prison by Jack on the condition that Michael murder Tommy. The vengeful Michael agrees and attempts to blow up his cousin with a car bomb. Tommy uncovers Michael's plot and survives, then murders Michael for his betrayal, fulfilling the late Polly's prophecy. Tommy then gives Duke the order to task Finn Shelby with finally bringing Billy Grade to justice, as Duke gives Finn the order to kill his friend. Finn refuses and turns on his family's gang. In response, Duke kills Billy himself and kicks Finn out of the Peaky Blinders for good. Continuing their alliance with the fascists, the IRA attempts to kill Arthur Shelby. The newly sober Arthur manages to turn the tables on his attackers and kill their leader, Captain Swing, finally avenging his Aunt Polly. Knowing his diagnosis would soon kill him, Tommy bids farewell to his family, who other than Arthur remain unaware of his imminent demise. As he departs, Tommy encourages his headstrong sister Ada to run for office one day. 1 month later, Tommy is living in seclusion awaiting his demise. As he contemplates taking matters into his own hands, he is stopped by the ghost of Ruby. Tommy discovers that the doctor that diagnosed him with tuberculosis is actually close friends with Oswald Mosley and the fascist party. Tommy seeks out the doctor looking for revenge after realizing his death sentence was just a scam to trick him into accepting death, but Tommy is a changed man and spares the doctor's life, burns all of his ties to his former life of crime, and then chooses to ride off in peace.